first thing I gotta do is look up the name I decided on,
Oh, that's exciting.
right?
I'm hopefully none of my awful joke entries were actually in contention, but maybe they helped flush all the bad ideas out of your head.
Well, Mark, welcome to Superpassions. Ooh.
Superpassions.
It's a podcast and video thing about extraordinary people with extraordinary hobbies.
Oh, thank you. I'm happy to be here.
So tell me what you do.
So my main hobby is unfortunately no longer Magic the Gathering. It is now, yes, used to be an extraordinary card game, but now instead I spend most of my time with yo-yos, either
Very cool.
yo-yoing or designing yo-yos or running a boutique yo-yo company.
So tell me a little bit more about like how you got into yo-yoing. Like, was this like a gradual process from Magic to yo-yo?
Not really. It was more of a gradual process from Magic to not doing Magic, and then trying to find other stuff to fill my time. And a long time ago, as a pretty common thing is that a lot of people used to yo-yo back in the yo-yo boom of the late 90s when Yomega was
I was there.
they released their Yomega Brain, which was a huge hit worldwide. That was the one with the clutch that would engage and help the yo-yo come back up by itself after a certain amount of spinning at the end of the string. And I had one of those in middle school, learned a couple tricks, put it away, lost it many years later. In 2018, actually, one of my daughters brought home just absolutely worst yo-yo from her daycare as a prize pack. It's like stamped out of tin or stamped aluminum or something, really lightweight, doesn't sleep at the end of the string, and
So that must be pretty hard to learn on.
yeah, it was not great, but it like kicked off all the synapses in my brain, and I started looking for more information about, hey, how about those yo-yos, right? So I was looking online, and I managed to, with the help of another friend who was like kind of adjacent to the yo-yo scene, I ordered a yo-yo that was already 15 years out of date, but much better than either the Brain or the weird toy box one that I got. And then that one was the Yo-Yo Factory Fast 201, which was a hit for them back when it released. And I learned some more stuff. There's lots of video tutorials available today. And there has been ever since like the rise of YouTube. And
yeah,
then
YouTube's been great for hobbyists.
Oh, it's been so good, both in terms of like learning stuff and like producing things for other people to watch.
Hey.
Yeah, like this even. It's great. It's a fun way to like kind of like leave a video artifact of something that's been going on in your life.
So what are the differences between a regular good and like a top of the line yo-yo?
So there's kind of like multiple different styles of yo-yos, and there's low and high quality versions of all of them. So of the type that the Yomega Brain was, a kind that has like a sort of like classic shape, and it goes down and it comes up pretty easily and is comfortable to hold. Those are still used, and some of the Yomega models from back then are actually still considered top like competition models for the style of yo-yoing that they're in, which is for doing like looping tricks with both hands simultaneously. The sort of yo-yoing that you might see in like an anime about yo-yoing. It's also an incredibly difficult style to learn. I think the most popular style of yo-yoing that connoisseurs get into is called 1A, and it's where you use a single yo-yo with a ball bearing that's set up to spin for a very long time, and it only comes back to your hand with a special trick called a bind. And because of that, the design of the yo-yo is such that you can get 1 or 2 minutes of spin time on it while doing tricks, which lets you get into very like intricate like string formations and other like interesting stuff. And it looks and feels very different from like traditional yo-yoing. And even in that category, there's yo-yos that range from like $10 to like 900 or whatever.
Geez. So looping back to your company, what kind of yo-yos do you make?
So I design yo-yos that are sort of like considered like mid-level in terms of price, that are constructed of, here, I'll just hold up one of them to the camera as I describe it. So they're constructed out of aluminum that is turned on a CNC lathe with a high-speed ball bearing. So
that's kind of like the, what was it, 1A type?
Yeah, so the yo-yos I design are mostly for 1A and other like similar styles that have grown out of that. The reason why I design these is kind of twofold. One, it's a popular style, and that's what I got into when I got back into yo-yos. And two, because of the method of construction, the startup costs are actually lower than doing like a plastic yo-yo, because most plastic yo-yos are injection molded, and those have like a very high setup and engineering cost to create and test the mold, and that's a much more like specialized field.
Yeah, from what I've seen, like anything in plastic, you need to have a really large number that you're making to make it worth it.
Yeah, there's a couple small yo-yo companies that have released a plastic yo-yo, and it's been they've had to produce like thousands of yo-yos to in like their initial run to like even like have it make sense. So they need to be like above a certain size. That I call them small. They're small compared to like Duncan yo-yos or
just
Yo-Yo
to put
Factory.
that into like perspective. Like how many yo-yos do you think are sold in a year
worldwide?
Yeah, well, I guess how many do you think like are in the market that these companies are in?
That's so hard for me to guess, because like there's like two different worlds. There's the world of yo-yo companies that release yo-yos that you can find at Walmart and Target, and those will be like injection molded plastic yo-yos that are like $6 to $15, and Duncan and Yo-Yo Factory make those, and I think that they're making on the order of like tens or hundreds of thousands of yo-yos like that a year. I think I have no idea. I haven't really done the research to kind of like gauge that. Whereas when I started out in 2018, I made 11 of these.
Oh my God, that's even a lot smaller than the thousands that these like plastic companies are doing.
Yeah, so I made 10 of these, and then the next year I made 60 more in different colors, and then I feel like I've sort of made it as like a boutique company. I sold almost 500 yo-yos last year.
Holy shit, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's thank you. It's a lot more testing and packing and mailing stuff than I anticipated, but it was fun process. But it's like nothing compared to the actual big yo-yo companies.
I saw your company has a yo-yo team on your website. Can you talk a bit about that? Like, what does the team do?
Yeah, so the team, which jokingly includes my cat as someone who tries to eat yo-yo string, but I have 6 very talented players that I sponsor, and the sponsorship is kind of a sort of deal where I send them equipment in the form of yo-yos, string, bearings, and other things that you need to yo-yo. I pay for their contest fees, and I pay them for additional stuff that they do beyond just like yoyoing on social media. So one of my players helps run the social media account that we have on Instagram. One of them does graphic design, and there's a couple other things that some of them do on and off depending on what we're sort of working on as a project.
And so they also like use your yo-yos at competitions?
Yeah, in competitions, and on a lot of the marketing for like yo-yo companies is on Instagram, because it's a good platform for short videos. So people will post what they call trick circles.
Oh, cool.
And they show off like their latest tricks, or like their coolest looking stuff, or just like silly yo-yo things.
It's kind of like I've seen like people doing like flow arts on Instagram. I would guess it's kind of in that same kind of conversation.
Yeah, it's a very similar thing, and I think some of the flow arts community sometimes has some like similar, like there's someone like designing skill toys or flow toys, and they have a sponsored team that is making like high quality posts.
Cool.
It's kind of how the Instagram like environment is set up to work.
So are there like, I assume there's competitions. Are there like, I don't know how to ask this exactly, but like, I'm kind of curious what techniques like yo-yoers use in the competitions, and what the jargon is.
Okay, yeah, I can talk about it. So every year, except for last year, there's was a World Yo-Yo contest. For a while, it was only in Orlando, Florida. Before I got back into yo-yos, unfortunately, so I never
Oh,
actually.
dang.
Yeah,
That's bad timing.
they switched to alternating United States, Europe, and Japan on a 3-year cycle, and they pick a different city each year. And players from all over the world will fly there and compete in the 5 main styles of competition yo-yoing. Which so there's 1A, which has one yo-yo like this, and people compete in what's called a freestyle. So they will do a routine. I guess it's not too dissimilar to like freestyle, like figure skating. Is that called freestyle?
I think there is something called freestyle. The reason I'm doing this kind of thing is because I don't know. That's why I'm doing this podcast.
So in yo-yoing, it's called a freestyle, and the yo-yoers will yo-yo for like one at a time to music that they choose. They'll do a 1 minute or 2 minute or 3 minute long routine to the music, doing a sequence of unique tricks quickly, without any mistakes, and also with like good choreography and like musicality. So like doing tricks to the beat and so on.
So you mentioned unique tricks. That means they're judged by like the number of different tricks they can do?
Yeah. So the way the scoring works is there is a technical evaluation that a panel of judges does with clickers. So you know the clicker thing that like it just counts. So they have one for positive clicks and one for negative clicks, and every time there's a difficult enough trick or trick element, they will get a +1 click. For exceptionally difficult stuff, they can get +2 or +3, but those are vanishingly rare. And then if you lose control of the yo-yo, you get a minus click, or like if you're trying to like land on a string and you miss, stuff like that. So in a very good 3-minute routine, a top level yo-yoer can get like pretty high, above like 100 clicks in that time period.
I was gonna like my mind went to like 20, 30, 100.
Yeah, it's the top players are very good, and they've been practicing for a very long time, and they enjoy yo-yoing a lot, so they don't mind it. Especially given that like even at the world contest level, there's not a lot of cash involved. And then after the technical clicking, there's also the performance evaluations, where the judges will rate the performance on a number of other categories like musicality. I don't remember the name of the rest of the categories, but it's all the stuff that doesn't fit into the technical clicking. And then the scores are normalized into 60 for the technical and then 40 for the performance.
So a total of 100.
Yeah, and then it just gets ranked. So for the 3-minute routines are only in the finals also. But what that does mean is a yo-yoer who's anticipating making finals has to prepare a 2-minute routine and a 3-minute routine. And if they weren't seeded into semifinals, then they would also need to prepare like a 1 minute or 1.5 minute or however long the prelims are for.
So you're bringing as many as like 3 different routines into these competitions.
Yeah, although I haven't actually competed or worked too much on like competition prep, but you can take elements from your 3-minute routine and kind of like compress it into a 2-minute, and do stuff like that to kind of like help you not have to make like 6 minutes of material, which is just a ridiculous amount of stuff.
Right. So there's 3 other types of competition?
So there's 4 other styles of yo-yoing. So all of them follow the same scoring format, but there's different rules about the equipment you use, and the way that the tricks that are allowed to be scored are different. So in 2A, where you're doing looping tricks, only the types of tricks that are considered looping are used for that. So and in none of these styles do you get points for just throwing a sleeper and doing like Rock the Baby or Eiffel Tower. It's unfortunate that you can't even get 1 click out of that, but those are considered like especially easy tricks, and you're only using the string, so they don't really count it anymore. So in 2A, you have to be doing stuff with both of the yo-yos. For instance, you're not allowed to have only 1. You can't have 3. There's another style with 2 yo-yos called 3A. The 1-arm, 2-arm sequence of naming falls apart pretty quickly once you get to 3. But
you think it'd be 2B?
Yeah, maybe. But in 3A, you have 2 of the long spinning ball bearing yo-yos. And that's a very technical and complex style. I've tried it once and given up. Then there's 4A, which is also called Offstring. In that style, the yo-yo can come completely free of the string. It's not attached. And
it's kind of like Diabolo.
Yes, exactly. And it actually borrows a lot of trick ideas from that. And in Offstring, you're actually allowed to use multiple yo-yos. And it's pretty common at the high levels for someone to have 2 of them at the same time, like orbiting each other. It's a very fun and dynamic style to watch. In 4A, let me go grab one of my 4A yo-yos real quick.
Cool.
All right, so I'm not going to attempt to throw this because it's at nighttime, but here is
oh, that's huge.
The size difference. They're much bigger and wider because you need to be able to catch it, and they're usually made of plastic. This one is made of Delrin or palm because they get dropped a lot. It's super common for in a contest for them to like hit the stage and then just go like scooting off, and people
and then you got to run after it.
Yeah, well, it's usually more efficient unless you can just like grab it with the string real quick. It's more efficient to just grab one of your backup yo-yos and keep going. Once you've lost the yo-yo like that, anyways, you already have your deduction from a
negative clicker.
Yeah. if a yo-yo flies off and flies at the audience, you get fully disqualified, and that I think that's most likely in the 4A or the final style, which is
Have you
called.
ever seen that happen?
I saw it happen once. I haven't seen one fly off into the audience, but I've seen video clips of people whose string has snapped during very like fast routines, and I don't know. Sometimes the string is just not good enough to make it through. So the final common competition style is called 5A or counterweight or freehand. And in this style, instead of tying the string to your finger, it's loose, and so you can. There's a lot of interesting stuff you can do in that style. Like it kind of feels like a mix of 1A and 4A, because like the whole assembly is just loose, and like once it's going, there's a type of trick called an aerial where you throw the whole thing up in the air and then catch it either on a different finger or like on your foot or whatever.
Cool.
But in that style, you have to keep the counterweight moving as well to count as tricks for the clickers. So it has a very like spinny, like rotational look to it, which is really cool.
So these styles each have like tricks associated with them. It's not like you can like freely do like you could probably goof off and like get some points, but it's not like you can do like really out there things. It's like almost like a list of things you're being judged against.
Kind of. So there is a what they call a contest meta, even though it's not quite that, because you're judged individually, not like against other players. But there's like a set of common tricks and elements that people usually learn as they work on a style. So in 5A, one of the like kind of hallmark like difficult tricks that people learn is called beasting, and that's one where it's one of the earlier tricks where you've completely let go of the counterweight and you're only using your offhand to have the counterweight and the yo-yo and the string all interact with each other at the same time. And that's about as much as I can do in 5A. It's fun. It's a cool feeling when you can like start picking up enough like ability to do stuff like that, because when I was starting out,
that's like what drives people to yo-yo, like getting that thrill of competence.
Yeah, and that was definitely it for me. Like when I started out, like I watched these videos of people competing or like doing tricks, and I'm like, wow, these things that they're doing just look really cool with like the way the string is moving and the yo-yo is like spinning around. And once I gradually built up enough skill to start doing some of those things, and it's kind of like the more I understood about like how those tricks actually worked, the more I appreciated the videos of the people doing the tricks, because it started making sense, and I could like say like, oh, that is a wrist mount, that it's a bee sting, that's a behind the back orbit or whatever.
So there's like these subtleties that you wouldn't notice as a total outsider, but as soon as you start picking up on them, you get more impressed.
Yeah, it's especially when I try to learn those tricks, and it's just like the difficult like nightmares. You know, I was like, oh my goodness, how does anyone land this? And then like a couple weeks later, I can do it like 90% of the time after like practicing for a while, and it's really cool to see to have that kind of like it's not easy and it takes a lot of practice, but like there's visible like improvement in the sorts of stuffs that I can do. And
that sounds really rewarding. Is there any like holy grail of yo-yo tricks for you that you either are proud of accomplishing or really want to do?
So that's kind of interesting, because like tricks are really difficult until they're not, and then you can just do them, which is kind of interesting, I guess. But they most of them kind of like remain fun to do even after all that, especially if it's like one that has like good like rhythm or timing, or like a satisfying like string motion where like the string will do something like interesting or make a cool shape. There's actually a trick I've been trying to learn for maybe a year and a half now, and like one part of it is just not working for me. And it is called slack to Pac-Man. I think the name of it is what got me interested in the trick.
I'm guessing it's like the string goes into a Pac-Man shape.
Yes, it does at the very end, and I've managed to the most recent time I've tried to learn it, I can do everything except for that final slack. So there's a lot of setup to get it to where this final string segment will like come around and you catch it on your thumb and it'll make a Pac-Man shape. And I can't make it move around the way it's supposed to, but I can do like everything up to it. It's something I'm going to be working on until I can do it easily. But
I'll be
the
excited
one.
to see it when you can show it off.
Yeah, I'll definitely share that when I do. But it was there's a yoyoers Discord where I hang out with people and we share tricks and stuff, and that one was kind of like a meme trick that everyone was learning back when I was newer at yoyoing, and it's kind of like stuck in my brain as something I want to learn because of that.
That's fun. I kind of have a question and a half in that, like, then we'll wrap it up. Who do you look up to in the yo-yo world? Are there like people who should be like people who the people watching this should look at to get an idea of some of these?
So let's see. Yeah, you even sent me this question ahead of time, and I thought about it, and I didn't come up with a lot of great answers, but so all right. So if you're interested in just kind of like seeing what like top level competition is, I think the person to look at right now is Gentry Stein. He is a sponsored player from Yo-Yo Factory and the current world champion in the 1A style. My favorite player amongst the other styles is, let's see, and I'm not very. I need to look up the full name real quick. Excuse me, one moment. Hajime Miura. He is a yo-yoer from Japan who 1 year took first place in both the 3A and the 4A styles.
Geez, so that means that he prepared like 2 entirely separate routines.
Yes, and he's won the 3A, the first place in the 3A style for like, it must have been like 5 or 6 years in a row, starting when he was 12.
So he wouldn't be much older than that right now, would he? He'd be like 18?
Yeah, he's not a small child anymore, but still so good, so good at that style that the people, like, there's a big score differential between him and the people who take second place. And the year after he took first in 4A, which is the Offstring style, he did a full 3-minute routine in the finals with a style called solo ham, which is where you have 2 Offstring yo-yos out at the same time.
And that wasn't even one of the types you described, if I recall correctly.
So it's a sub-style of Offstring. So in Offstring, you're allowed to use any number of yo-yos, 1 or greater, as long as they're this sort of like not attached to the string. It is, I've seen people use 3, but it's super unwieldy because you have to throw each one from a new string, and then eventually get them back onto separate strings after you're done. Because if you don't get the yo-yo back to your hand, that's a deduction.
And I'm guessing if you get them all on one string, negative clicker, negative clicker.
Yeah, you could maybe get them all like returned on the same string, but that would be an awful mess, and you'd have to swap them out. But it was an incredibly like impressive like flex of his skills to do that.
That's so impressive. All right, so final question: where can people check Mark 1 Yoyos out?
All right.
Plug your shit.
So I have a website, mk1yoyos.com. And there are links to our YouTube channel and Instagram from there. The Instagram is also just at mk1yoyos. And you can find me at my personal account on Instagram at ggmarkd, Mark with a K. And I think most of my yo-yos are out of stock anywhere, so just send me a message if you want to know more about them.
All right, we're going to edit some of Mark's trick videos into this. But Mark, it has been so fun to talk to you, and I've honestly learned a lot. This is so cool. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Asher. It's been a pleasure.
Take care.
All right, bye.
Superpassions. Superpassions.